We had a Mexican lager called...
Still on My Grind.
Still on My
Yep.
Grind. We heard that story.
Yep.
Awesome story.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
What's next?
So next is Heaving Through Corrupted Lungs. We canned this beer 2 days ago, and it's a hazy double IPA. It's one of the styles that we've had a lot more reach with. This is one of the styles that we also are in a lot of foreign markets with. This is where the demand is. So in terms of production volume, these are typically the largest batches. This particular hazy double IPA, we went ahead and dry hopped with Citra, El Dorado, Motueka, Zappa, and Nelson Sauvin, which is an eclectic combination of hops. However, I just want you to take a quick whiff. The aroma is like a tropical fruit basket. I mean, it is over the top, the smell that you get here.
Mm-hmm. Very, very fruity.
Oh, and so the reason why we like these eclectic hop combinations, 4 or 5 hops in a beer is pretty typical for us because of the fact we like to have bright citrus notes up front that complements the yeast that we use really well. And so that's where we use things like obviously Citra is your go-to, but El Dorado and Motueka are 2 of our favorites for that purpose. They both kick in nice amounts of orange, lime, a little bit of lemon peel, a little bit of pith. But then we also like when your beer starts and finishes with 2 different tastes, right? That complexity is where a lot of people find the appeal in this process. And again, when it starts to become more artful, right? Not anyone, but a lot of people can make beer that tastes good. Not everyone can make beer that kind of pairs each individual element well from start to finish. So we'll use something like Zappa because it contributes an earthy, almost dank note to the finish that, again, really just helps make it more of a dynamic experience with each sip. And you'll actually find as you work your way through the pint, you're going to start to lose some of that citrus, pick up some more of that dank, or vice versa. It really depends on what hits you first. So each sip is going to have a dynamic response, but just drinking your way through a can is also going to be a dynamic experience. And it's going to make it so that you're ready to get that next can right out of the fridge afterwards because you're not done with that experience yet,
Did you just take a sip of that?
I did.
It is time. We do need to be sipping.
I cheat.
It's all good. I'm like, wait a minute.
I
Are we
admit
supposed
it.
to drink it? And hang on, I got to respond to what you just said. Every sip can be different.
Yep.
Beginning different, and that's the beauty of a well-crafted beer.
Oh, absolutely.
And even as the temperature changes,
Uh-huh.
as your palate
certainly.
changes, because you kind of get hopped.
Carbonation levels changing as you get through the...
Yep. And one of the things you'll notice as you sip this is that it has a very unique texture. It's very creamy, coats your palate almost immediately, and very pleasant to drink in general. Carbonation is actually relatively high for some of our hazies, but because of how heavy some of these malts are, it really just makes it nice and silky smooth. So each sip is very easy and, like I said, coats your palate. It just transforms the flavor that you get out of it.
And it's super clean. Everything's kind of there.
Yeah.
You kind of can dial in everything that's there.
Like the bitterness is there, but it's just enough to balance out the malty sweetness. Right. And, like I said, I think that little flash of bitterness, obviously very essential for resetting your palate. But that's part of what makes the sipping such a dynamic experience.
And these guys have heard this before, but I often describe a really well-made big IPA as dangerously smooth because it's so easy to drink and you can really do some damage to yourself.
We just released our first quad IPA last month at 12.5%. And I mean, it's almost bone dry. It's around, I think FG was somewhere around 2.
No kidding.
Bone dry,
That's
West
impressive.
Coast style, but it is super easy to drink. Big grapefruit notes up front, little bit of resinous pine at the finish. And again, I mean, it goes down like a lager, but at 12.5%, it's an aggressive lager. I even made the can code, so on the bottom of our cans, there'll be little messages. I made the can code for Absolute Zero Danger Zone because it really is a beer you gotta be respectful with.
Right.
And almost everyone that I've given that beer to, the next week, they'll tell me some hilarious story about how they drank the whole 4-pack and totally forgot it's almost 13%. And I'm like, well, yeah, you drank a half gallon of 13% alcohol. So I believe that you fell asleep in your couch and didn't know,
Lucky if couch and the front lawn.
Yes. Yeah, to each their own. To each their own.
Time out for science. Ryan mentioned FG stands for final gravity. And what it tells you is how much of the sugar that was in that beer to begin with the yeast have consumed. Attenuation, right?
Yep, attenuation.
So a low final gravity is what you want when you're making a big beer a lot of the time, because then you get a fairly dry beer and it's not overly sweet.
Yep.
There's a brewery near where we live that will remain nameless.
Uh-huh.
All their big beers taste like wort.
Oh, yeah.
Wort, unfermented beer.
Yeah.
And it's just not pleasant.
Oh, yeah.
So this is super clean and it finishes really great.
Oh, yeah.
The sweetness,
absolutely.
The sweetness is there up front, but then it finishes dry. And,
yep. And I know a lot of people are hesitant when they see contains lactose on a label. If you're lactose intolerant, I would say, be careful. That being said, our lactose percentages are a lot lower than a lot of other breweries. So if you see contains lactose and you get worried that, oh, this is going to be a milkshake IPA, right? It's not really the case. We don't like to use lactose in that way. We think it helps aid in texture and it does a little bit of back sweetening, but not a tremendous amount. When people start using it for back sweetening, that's when it starts to become, they say milkshakey, but it's like sweet dairy, right? That's the flavor that it contributes, and I feel like that contrasts with a lot of the flavors that you're trying to emphasize in a beer.
No, it's well done. Good job.
Appreciate it.
Since you obviously know so much about the technical aspects of beer, is that from working here, or did you have a beer background before?
Beer passion. Okay. A lot of my technical references that I'm saying right now, that's just the result of the fact that I'm not really content stopping learning at any point. So going to work, going home, always listening to beer and brewing podcasts, always trying to learn more about what other people are doing differently, right? I'm constantly asking questions to all of our staff or everyone else that I might know in the industry, and doing my own reading as well. So I'm actually just now starting to get into the home brewing side of things. And
just now? That was
just now.
Okay, that's what I wondered, if you had been a brewer before you got here.
So I'm just
a bartender before you got here.
Yes.
So tell us how you got this job.
Oh, yeah, this is a funny story. So I was actually bartending at a fast casual place, and
Nicely put.
Thank you. I'd been there for a while, but I had already gotten into a lot of the craft brewery things that were happening in this area. I was aware of Adroit, had a bunch of their beer already. I thought everything was phenomenal. And so, the owner and his wife, never met them yet, but they actually came in to the bar that I was working at, sat down, said, hey, what do you have that's greasy? I'm recovering from last night. I was like, oh, did you have a rough night? And he goes, no, it was just too many high ABV beers. And I was like, oh, well, if you like high ABV beers, you should really check out Adroit Theory in Percival. And they thought that was so hysterical that they gave me their card and set up the interview. So, right place, right time, saying the right thing.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah, that's actually how I ended up here. And then started as a bartender here, ended up doing a lot of sales work, broke my foot doing sales work.
Oh, no.
It was a happy accident. So that actually meant that I was transferred into doing a lot more admin work here. And once I had started doing that, Mark was like, oh, well, you're actually doing your job pretty well. That's awesome. How would you like to do this full time? And I said, absolutely, sign me up.
Good for you, man.
So that's how we got here. And now I've been doing this for roughly a year now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's next?
So next is my personal favorite beer. This is All I See Is Carrion. We typically do it about once a year. It's a Belgian quad. It's got our most complex grain bill of any beer that we're going to make. It is relatively dry for it being a 12.2% beer. That being said, obviously super malt forward. There's a lot of malt sweetness that's there, but it complements the red fruit that you get from the yeast esters so well. I mean, that is nice level of carbonation. It's very refreshing to drink. You definitely don't believe that it's 12.2% as you take the sip, but like I said, that malt sweet backbone and the prominence of the Belgian yeast esters, it is, in a world of its own, truly.
You can go first.
I'm going to smell it first.
Okay.
Yep, you'll get a lot of raisin and cranberry just off the nose.
And the malt is big malt.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I had some last night, I must confess. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is my favorite within good reason.
By the way, I should put a disclaimer in here. we do this. When we do this, we're often like, God, this beer's so good, and people are going to think you guys are what's the word? Pollyanna. Like everything's so great. No. We choose the brewery based on the quality of the beer. This is why. Okay.
Yeah.
If we're doing this, if we're having an interview and we're chatting with the brewer, the owner, the manager, it's because we've already scoped the place out and we know the beer is off the hook. So, anyway.
Yep.
We don't love everything. Trust me.
Yes, and sometimes being experimental does yield not great results.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about incorporating, especially like botanical flavors or herbaceous flavors. I mean, that can pretty quickly scale out of control. So
I'll put a link. Look at our interview at Ludlam Island Brewery for my Kolsch story.
Oh yeah.
Tried to make it out of grape nuts. Didn't quite work.
Ooh.
It did though in the end.
Adventurous though. Adventurous.
Very adventurous. You're a Philly guy.
Yep. That's where my family's from.
Pennsylvania, Jersey side, Philly side, actual Philadelphia?
Aston Township, Northeast Philly.
Okay.
Yep.
How long have you been in the South, so to speak?
Pretty much when I was born is when my family had up and moved here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so spent my entire life in this area.
So you're a Virginia guy.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm just constantly trying to flee the ongoing development that's happening in Northern Virginia.
Yeah,
Move
that's
further
everywhere.
out west. Yeah, big fan of small towns.
What do you think? What are you getting? You getting the raisin? You getting the? She's a super taster.
And the mouthfeel is beautiful. Like all your products have a beautiful mouthfeel.
Yes, this one in particular though.
But again, it's
my
not,
favorite in the line.
It's not like molassesy sweet. Not at all. It's just super balanced.
Oh yeah, like you said, it's a big beer, right? So that malt comes through pretty heavily, and you do get that malty sweetness, but the body of it just really doesn't match what you would expect it, right? You would think that this should be dramatically more chewy, and that this should be something that's more of an ordeal to get through. But I'll tell you what, this beer goes down the hatch, and I don't know about you, but I'm not getting any trace of booziness for a 12.2% beer.
It's really not very boozy.
No, it's not.
You get the warmth.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
You know
it's there.
It's there, right?
You can feel it, but you don't taste it.
You finish the can, there is no longer a question. It is there. That's for sure. But it's one we do once a year, and the reason for that is primarily because Belgian quads age beautifully, right? So if we are holding on to it for a while, no one's complaining. But like I said, it's also the most complicated grist that we use. So the amount of work that goes into making this beer can be truly tremendous. And the need for volume, it's a busy day anytime you make it. We'll just put it that way.
We're up against the clock, so
all right.
we'll take a little break. But you're all cans now, completely?
Almost.
Okay.
Anything that we're going to make that we intend for people to age, we're going to go ahead and bottle that, right? Mm-hmm. I don't personally think there's a reason why you can't age in cans. That being said, obviously the preference for most people with a cellar is bottles. Mm-hmm. And for us, that also helps communicate to the customers, these are the beers that you want to age. These are the beers that you want to drink quickly. We used to do everything in either 22-ounce bombers or a 375 milliliter cork and cage. They're very fun. It is also incredibly arduous to do that. To put it make an example out of it, for us to brew or bottle the All That I've Learned, which was the most recent beer that we bottled, it took 4 days of bottling. Wow. Whereas it would have taken us approximately 2 hours to can it.
Canning line.
So, there's labor restrictions. I mean, it's definitely a more costly medium to package in. And quite frankly, right now, people are more interested in cans, at least in the States. Overseas, it's a different market, but people love the 16-ounce format cans. So, we'll put most of our beer in that, but anything that's truly special that we want to make sure people understand that this is a beer that's going to be great right now, but it's going to be even better in 2 years or 3 years. We'll go ahead and put those in bottles so that there is no question. This is meant to be aged.
I know, thanks. What's the age on this now as we're drinking it?
6 months.
Oh, really?
We're at 6 months.
So
Yep.
That's a big investment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's almost gone right now, too. We're down to, I want to say, our last few 4-packs and I think 2 sixtels of kegs. So it's very nearly gone. Oh, absolutely. Like I said, it's my favorite. I don't need much encouragement to crack open a can of this. So.